Everyone, welcome back to Yuri's Box. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Trump tariffs. Will they cause inflation? If you like this kind of content, consider leaving a like. And as usual, nothing in this video is financial advice. I'll try to keep this a relatively short video. I know that every time I say that, the video ends up lasting about 20 minutes, but I'll try my best. Let's get straight down to business. So in this video, I'm not going to talk about whether the tariffs are a negotiation tactic or everything. I spoke about that in yesterday's video. I'm just going to take the tariffs at face value and answer, or really give my interpretation of current events, and really answer, will they cause inflation? Now, in case you haven't followed my previous videos, I'm a huge fan of the quits rate. Now, what is the quits rate? It is basically a measurement of the rate at which labor market participants in the US voluntarily quit their job. And there are a few things that you can extrapolate from the quits rate. For instance, when the quits rate is at cycle highs, labor market participants are telling you, I see abundance in the economy. I see the possibility to increase my wage significantly, just given the fact that I can see job openings, meaning that if I see, if I know that I have the possibility to switch job, I have 2 or 3, positions, elsewhere, I can use that as leverage against my current employer and say, either you give me, 5-6% increase in my wage, or I'm switching jobs where I can get, even more. All right. That's what you can extrapolate out of a high quits rate. If, on the other hand, we are at cycle lows, labor market participants are really telling you the opposite. They no longer see the abundance in the economy that they saw in 2022, and they're really telling you that they're acting in a more defensive manner. They're not quitting their job voluntarily because they know, or at least they think, that if they quit their job, they might not find another job. All right. And again, the way I treat the quits rate is the ultimate survey. All right. The direct competition to, if you will, to the quits rate is something like the University of Michigan Consumer Survey or the Conference Board Consumer Survey. And the reason why it's direct competition to it, and even better, it's the best kind of survey in my opinion, is because it has none of the political noise associated with the University of Michigan and Conference Board surveys. Now, I'm not saying that those surveys don't have their validity. They definitely do. I generally tend to listen more to the quits rate compared to University of Michigan and the Conference Board, because again, as I've hinted to just a moment ago, hinted at. If you ask for people's opinion, they'll give you their opinion. Be sure of that. The problem with that is that people's opinions can be easily skewed by political leanings. For example, I've pointed this out many, many times. Inflation expectations. They've skyrocketed in the past few months. Now, granted, some of the tariff rhetoric definitely played into that. Definitely. And again, some of the tariff front running helped push things up as, businesses scrambled to, fill their inventory up before tariffs. Granted. But if you look, the moment Trump gets elected, Democrats' inflation expectations skyrocket. Basically, Democrats are expecting a Weimar Germany. All right. And Republicans, after Trump gets elected, are expecting zero inflation, basically the land of Oz. All right. Anyway, I'm not judging either Democrats or Republicans. I'm just looking at the data and telling it how it is. People's opinion can easily be skewed by political noise. And again, coming back to the quits rate, you have none of that. That's the beauty of the quits rate. It is just a survey of people's actions. And, as, every macho guy will tell you, actions speak louder than words. And as long as the quits rate is low, that will feed into wage growth. All right. So up until May of 2021, wage growth was quite stable. After that, we get wages really starting to move up significantly. And they peak around June of 2022, August of 2022. Now, again, up until kind of the early 2021, which is really when we started to reopen the economy. We had vaccines getting rolled out and all that good stuff. You saw the quits rate break the previous highs and explode to new cycle highs. All right. Now, granted, the wage growth peaked in August of 2022 and really the summer of 2022. The quits rate peaked a little earlier. All right. It peaked in March of 2022, really. But again, the two are directly correlated. Why? Because of everything I just explained. If labor market participants are seeing abundance in the economy, the fact that they can even the potential to switch jobs is a good enough reason to ask for a higher wage. And so that all feed into, again, the quits rate feeds into wage growth feeds into consumption, and that feeds into inflation. Now, where are we now? With the last data point for the quits rate came for the month of February. And although wage growth has ticked up just a smidge, we are still on downward trend. All right. And the reason for that, again, is the exact opposite of what I just said for when, wage is going up, wage growth is going up, and the quits rate is going up. People are staying put. They no longer see the abundance in the economy. And they're more likely to act in a defensive manner, which again is kind of trading potential income for job security. So whenever the quits rate is at cycle highs, that would be an employee's labor market. And you can easily see wage growth pick up in a significant manner. If, on the other hand, you have the quits rate at cycle lows, that will be a headwind to wage growth, and you'll refer to that as an employer's labor market. Really, the employer has the leverage. Now, why is this important? Because when asking the question, will there be inflation? Will there be inflation caused by tariffs? The question you're really asking is, who is going to eat the price increases? Is it going to be consumers? Or is it going to be businesses? Because if it is going to be consumers, then yes, you'll have inflation. You'll have this positive feedback loop where, and I'll get to that in a minute. But overall, yes, if consumers end up eating the price increases, then yes, inflation is on the table. If, on the other hand, these new price increases are eaten by businesses, then the answer is no. You'll actually have a scenario where, as crazy as it sounds, inflation causes disinflation, trending towards deflation. And why is that? Well, to keep things simple, businesses make stuff, all right, and the input costs rise, or there's a tax, all right. In this case, there's a tax. Businesses look at the customers and they look at the health of their customers. And they look at things like, do customers have the tools to keep up with another price increase, like they had in the post-pandemic recovery? If they do, then and wages are growing and people have extra income to spend on the same goods, really, then yes, the businesses can absolutely pass price on to consumers, and that's when businesses have so-called pricing power. They can easily push the increased costs onto consumers, and that's how you have inflation. The thing that is missing right now is the wage growth, as we saw in the previous chart. We don't have wage growth, meaning wages are really stagnating, at least on an inflation, when accounting for inflation. But overall, the fact that wages aren't growing as they were in 2022 suggests that people no longer have the tool to keep up with any new bout of inflation. And that, again, any new bout of inflation is likely to be destructive on the demand side, meaning people are just going to quit altogether. They're going to say, I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to buy this good. Even if I like it, these goods, I can't buy them because I am lacking wage growth. I already have all of my expenses and prices are, going up because of inflation, but my income isn't going up as much, which would allow me to easily eat these new price increases, okay? So that leaves us with businesses having to eat the new costs. The problem with that is that it hurts corporate margins, meaning that if you can't increase your revenue and you have increasing costs, the profit that you make starts to get squeezed. And if it gets squeezed enough, the only real tool businesses have at their disposal is really cutting costs. And one of the ways you can cut costs rather easily is laying off people. And that's how you get basically a recession at that point. And there's nothing more, nothing kills inflation like a recession. And that's how you get, really into that kind of perverse idea of that, inflation actually causing disinflation. All right. It's a matter of where are we in the cycle? Does the consumer have the tool to keep up with inflation? And if the consumer doesn't have the tool to keep up with inflation, meaning a hot labor market that gives them the tool to drive up wage growth, as we saw in the previous chart, well then, businesses are going to have to eat price increase. And they're going to have to defend their margin. And the way they're going to defend their margin is by cutting costs, potentially laying off people. All right. So that's really the question that really needs answering here. Who is going to eat the price increases caused by tariffs? Is it going to be the consumers? And again, this really varies a lot. I lean more on the side that consumers are not as strong as they were in 2022, just even by looking at the quits rate. Again, if consumers were really that aggressive, that it would be showing up in the data, and it would be showing up in wage compensation really being at summer of 2022 highs. And again, if that is the case, businesses are going to have to eat their costs, and that's really the case. I tend to lean more towards. I don't see inflation being a huge problem at this point. And if it does become a problem, it's just going to hurt the demand side. So it's just going to hurt growth. All right. It's just going to hurt the outlook for growth. I definitely fall in that camp. But again, you can have your opinion. I could easily be wrong. And we could be back in the 1970s before we even know it. But again, that is my interpretation of things. The quits rate is telling us a very different picture from what we saw in 2021 and 2022. Namely, wage compensation is sluggish. That feeds into consumption. And, if consumption is sluggish, as we've started to see, if you end up paying more for the same amount of goods, that's not good, given the fact that you have no way of increasing your income. You have more or less the same income, and you're buying the same level of goods at a higher price. That just means you'll have less money left over to spend on other things, if you have already money left over. And if you're on the bottom half of the population, that just means, more pain. Which in turn, again, I'm going a bit round in circles here, but if businesses see that is the case, that people can't take on these extra costs because they don't have the income to do it, or the wage growth to do it, well, then businesses are going to have to eat the extra costs, and that will just be a negative for growth. I'll leave it at that. If you like this kind of content, consider leaving a like, and I'll see you next time. Bye.